one of the things that we want to do, and I think with 21 folks on the line, we'll go ahead and do this in the chat. But if you can share your name, role, institution, and one inaccurate perception you've heard about community colleges or independent institutions. And what I'm going to do here is ask my colleagues at MCCA and MICU to share verbally, just so you're introduced to all of the folks at MCCA and MICU. And then we'll have you add all of your comments in the chat as well. Like I said, my name is Erica Oriens, and one inaccurate perception I've heard about independent institutions is they are very unaffordable. And with that, I will turn it over to my colleague Colby at MICU.
Thank you, Erica. Hi, everybody. If you hear a little voice in the background, my little one is awake from her nap and very busy. So I'm Colby Cesaro. I'm the Vice President at Michigan Independent Colleges and Universities. And an inaccurate perception, I'm going to share one about community colleges and one about independent institutions. So one on community colleges is that community colleges are not academically rigorous. And the other one for independent institutions is that independent institutions are for rich white kids. And I will pass it to Shannon or Donna?
Sure, Shannon's great.
Shannon.
I think you're great too, Erica. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Shannon Donovan, Director of Member Services for Michigan Independent Colleges and Universities. And an inaccurate, I would say that the faculty at community colleges are not prepared to properly to instruct students to prepare them for their degree programs. That's an inaccurate perception that I have heard. So excited for today's session.
Great.
Am
Donna?
I supposed to pass it to someone? Oh,
Yeah.
Okay, Donna.
Hi, everyone. My name is Donna Petras. I am a consultant with the Michigan Community College Association. I have had the pleasure to work with many of you on Michigan Transfer Pathways and other projects. Excited to work with the new members and the new participants on this call in terms of getting you involved in all of these wonderful projects. So many of what you've already said is what I was thinking in terms of those inaccurate perceptions. I guess one of the ones that I want to talk about, and I don't know if it's necessarily unique to independent institutions, but it's more about transfer courses from the community college not transferring for a course-to-course equivalency that will come in just as general credit.
Mm-hmm.
I think Jenny's on the call too, so I could pass it to Jenny.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for calling on me, Donna. Good to see you all. Yes, I'm Jenny Shanker. I am the Director of Research and Institutional Practice with the Michigan Community College Association. And so I'll share a misconception about both community colleges and independent institutions. And that is that neither are particularly interested in finding out more about transfer and the success of transfer. In my conversation, that is something that I think is a general impression that people don't, really care, or that they don't know. And I think that in the opportunities that I've had to speak with both people from both community colleges and independent institutions, both are very interested in the success of transfer students, and particularly focused on how they can strengthen the experience of transfer.
Great, thank you all. And I'm enjoying reading all of your comments in the chat as well. So thank you for doing that. I want to move on next to talk about our project. And just to provide you with a little bit of background, thanks to our generous funders, the Teagle Foundation and the Arthur Vining Davis Foundations. Many of you know that MICU, MASU, and MCCA have collaborated for a number of years on several transfer initiatives in the state of Michigan, most notably the Michigan Transfer Network, the Michigan Transfer Agreement, and the My Transfer Pathways. Several years ago, we were contacted by the Teagle Foundation, who was really impressed that Michigan is ahead of the curve, if you will, on including independent institutions in this work. There are several other states where independent institutions are not permitted to participate in statewide transfer work. It's only public institutions. So they were very curious about and interested in doing some work in Michigan because we're so open to partnering with independent institutions. We received a planning grant where we spent some time doing some qualitative and quantitative research on how we can improve transfer pathways between independent institutions or between community colleges and independent institutions. And then we submitted a full grant request that was fully funded by the Teagle Foundation and Arthur Vining Davis Foundations earlier this year. Next, I want to move on and talk to you about what we plan on doing in this project over the next 2 years. And with that, I want to go over our project goals. Our first goal is to increase the number of students transferring from community colleges to independent institutions and graduating with liberal arts degrees. Really, we know that too few students who want to transfer actually do transfer, and even fewer students who transfer eventually earn a degree. So our ultimate goal is to increase the number of students that are transferring and earning a degree between community colleges and independent institutions. Second, we would like to have universal participation among independent institutions in the Michigan Transfer Network, the Michigan Transfer Agreement, and the MyTransfer pathways. The community colleges and the public universities are required to participate in the MTN and the MTA to be eligible to receive our state appropriations. But of course, since independent institutions do not receive state appropriations, they're not required to participate in those. But we believe, and in a lot of the research that we've done talking with students and faculty and staff, that having that universal participation across all of our institutions would be of great benefit to students and a great opportunity for us to be able to communicate, frankly, that everyone is included in the MTA, the MTN, and the MyTransfer pathways that apply to your institution, recognizing that some of you don't offer all of the degree programs that are in the pathways. We, at the top of the session today, we asked you about your inaccurate perceptions of each other's or of our two sectors, because during that planning grant, we interviewed faculty and staff from both community colleges and independent institutions and found that many of the perceptions that you identified in the chat were pretty pervasive across faculty and staff. The issues of affordability, of quality, of faculty qualifications were pretty pervasive across the interviews that we did, and we want to increase cross-sector understanding, especially among institutions in Michigan. Finally, we at the Community College Association certainly have recognized that we have done some really great work on transfer in Michigan. I think the Transfer Network was recognized by the National Institute for the Study of Transfer Students as an example of an outstanding transfer website for students. The MTA is a terrific tool to help students transfer. But unfortunately, we could do a better job of communicating information about all of this transfer work. No doubt it's challenging to communicate across 70 some institutions in a state, and we want to spend some time focusing on communicating not only with students, but we want to focus on improving communication between institutions and also within institutions as well. So those are our goals, but I also think it's important that we cover what we are not doing in this project. We are not requiring independent institutions to admit community college transfer students. So throughout any of this work, you will not be asked or required to admit any students just by participating in this transfer work. Admissions decisions continue to be at the discretion of each institution and also at the discretion of each program. We are also not requiring participating institutions to change their degree program requirements. I think some of the misperceptions of the Michigan Transfer Agreement and the My Transfer Pathways is that you, meaning the independent institution, are required to change your gen ed to align with the MTA, which is actually not true. Both of those programs are flexible enough to be able to accommodate the general education that you require, while also meeting the needs of your transfer students as well. We will not be asking any of you to report student level data related to this project. We will focus much more on institutional level information throughout the project, but we won't be asking you to report student level data or do any kind of annual reporting as part of being part of this as well.
I will say it's not required, but I may be bugging your institution for information for our own internal reports at MICU and for some of our advocacy reports, because while our organizations, because we're private, don't receive funding directly from the legislature, we do like to share our collaborative efforts and data from those when they are really successful, because it can help encourage additional dollars to flow into student financial aid programs. And encouraging more students to attend increases the number of students that would. You want to say hi? You can come and say hi. This is Paige. So while it's not required for this grant, I may be reaching out and asking for additional information on a voluntary basis.
Great, thanks, Colby.
Yeah.
And thank you, Paige. We always enjoy in our meetings. Yeah. So I want to move on and talk a little bit about the activities. So you've seen our goals and what we hope to achieve in this project. So let's talk a little bit about the activities and what we're planning on doing. We have 3 activities that we've outlined. The first is to increase independent institutions' participation in the MTN, the MTA, and the My Transfer Pathways. We will do that through a series of workshops, today being the first one where we're just providing you with an overview. And then you'll also receive personalized and customized support from my colleague, Donna Petrus, who can help you through every step of the process to participate in all 3 of those transfer initiatives. The second activity that we'll be doing is developing a set of resources, training resources to do what we call demystifying independent institutions and community colleges. So those perceptions we talked about earlier, we want to start to help people understand more about each other's sector. And that includes all kinds of folks, faculty, staff, administrators at both community colleges and institutions or independent institutions, to have a better understanding of each other's sectors. The last activity will be the development of a series of communications guidelines that we'll share with Michigan community colleges and universities supporting transfer students. And as I mentioned earlier, a lot of that work will focus on how you communicate with students within your institution and then between institutions as well. For the purposes of this workshop today, we really want to focus on activity 1. Most of you won't need to be terribly involved with activity 2 and activity 3 until well into 2023. So we want to focus on activity 1. Next slide. So for those of you who may not be familiar with the three, the MTN, the MTA, and the MyTransfer pathways, we wanted to put a specific slide in here so you can see what this would include. Participation in the Michigan Transfer Network means that in the image that I have here on the left-hand column, it means that you are providing the MTN, the data, the centralized data system that we have, you're providing the MTN with course-to-course equivalencies. So how courses transfer from other institutions to your institution. And we also have a very slick tool behind the scenes where you can provide students with additional information about how to request a transcript, how to apply for admission, how to visit campus, those kinds of things. You provide us with a bunch of links that then we put out on the website, and so that students can connect with your institution. So the big piece of what it means to participate in the transfer network is that you're providing us with your course equivalencies and links to information on your website. Participation in the Michigan Transfer Agreement will be coordinated with the Michigan Association of Collegiate Registrars and Admissions Officers. And those are the folks that manage participation in the MTA. And essentially what that means is that your institution accepts approximately 30 credit hours of the MTA in 5 distribution areas that meet some or all of the general education requirements at your institution. And then we also ask institutions to outline what the other gen ed requirements are that are not met by the MTA at your institution. You know, for almost, I think virtually at every institution, there's an upper division writing course that is required by every bachelor's degree program, but is not met by the MTA because it is by nature a major specific writing course. So you would outline that. Other institutions may have a specific religious requirement that isn't fulfilled by the MTA either, and you would be able to outline that. Finally, participation in the MyTransfer pathways are more focused on specific disciplines where not only will students' individual courses transfer, but that the MTA plus a set of specific transfer pathways courses, and those are have been agreed upon by faculty from programs at community colleges and universities that are courses that students should take in the first and second year to be prepared to enroll in upper division or junior level courses when they transfer to the university. So those are the three, the kind of details around the participation in each of those 3 programs. For those of you who may not be participating in some of those, if you're already participating, great. You've already got, you know, you're part of the way there to be a full participant in all of these programs that we offer. I want to close out my section of talking about our timeline for this. So the project begins now, or a little bit earlier this year, and will continue through the fall of 2023. So that's all of 2022 and all of 2023, essentially. And we have an ongoing process of helping independent institutions join the MTN, the MTA, and the MyTransfer pathways. Donna will be reaching out to each one of you individually to work on, get you started on joining each of these projects. But we can really accommodate institutions joining those projects throughout the duration of the project. About quarterly, we'll be having these workshops, which will be available to you to attend live or recorded. And this will be an opportunity. Today, we're spending a lot of time talking to you, but hopefully in future workshops, we'll talk with you to do some troubleshooting and be able to answer questions about your participation in the transfer initiatives. all of this will culminate in what we're calling the Community College to Independent Institution Transfer Symposium in the summer of 2023. We're planning to host probably what will be one of our first in-person events post-COVID that we host, hopefully at an independent institution. And most surely, I hope by summer of 2023, it will be in a warm, temperate climate. We'll be able to host that symposium to be able to celebrate some of our accomplishments and share some of the work that you've done. Not only your participation in the transfer initiatives, but that's when we will be releasing the demystifying resources, and we'll also be releasing the communications guidelines. So that is a bit of background in just 20 minutes or so on our project. And with that, I'll turn it over to my colleague, Donna Petrus, to talk about participation.
Thanks, Erica. I may repeat a little bit of what Erica said, but hopefully I'll expand on some of this detail. For the transfer pathways themselves, the TICO Foundation was very interested in focusing on the liberal arts transfer pathways, which include art, biology, communications, criminal justice, and psychology. We do have 5 additional pathways, and as Erica mentioned, we're going to support you and help you through this process if you have not yet participated. So I just wanted to make you aware that there are some additional pathways that we can go over in detail later. But if you're interested in joining those, that support is also available through me and through Erica and through Colby and Shannon as well. So there's a lot of opportunity depending on those programs that you actually offer at your institutions to offer some participation in the Michigan transfer pathways. The process for the transfer pathways, we've developed some very detailed resources for you. We have a protocol that you can follow. We have set worksheets that will help you through setting up your courses as part of those pathways. We require your institutions to provide signatures as an example, excuse me, to kind of verify that everyone at your institution is supporting these efforts. So don't get too overwhelmed by the process, because one of the workshops is going to focus on the pathways themselves. But I wanted to let you know that there are a lot of resources out there that can help you participate. One thing I want to step back and talk about is the website, and it's mitransfer.org. And we'll have some links and resources for you at the end of the PowerPoint presentation. But that's really the hub, the work that website is really the hub for a lot of the information that we're talking about. So after, if you're new to this and after this workshop, you could go back out to mitransfer.org and just look around. There's a lot of resources there. Just click through some of the information, see what your colleagues and your peer institutions are doing out there in terms of their profiles of information that they have, links back to their website, look at some of the Michigan transfer pathways, information, et cetera. And I think it'll really be helpful for you. We also have a number of resources related to videos and instructional manuals. So if you want to get a kind of a head start or a jump on some of what this work is going to involve, again, there's lots of resources there on that website. So in terms of the Michigan Transfer Agreement, Erica mentioned to you the 30 credit block of that general education, asking you to then expand on some additional general education information that you have. The MTA, it's a kind of assumed that it's always going to be embedded in those Michigan transfer pathways. Again, there'll be a whole separate workshop dedicated and focused on helping you set up these courses, work through which courses they are. But again, on mitransfer.org, there is information out there that describes this. And we have a great partner with Macro to help institutions work through this. In many instances, it's the registrars that are working on this, in addition to some other staff people at your institution. So when we get to this workshop, if there are other people at your institution that are involved with this or should be involved with this, please make sure you extend that invitation to have them participate in the workshop. Oh, sorry, went too fast. The Michigan Transfer Network itself is, as Erica described, that massive database of course-to-course equivalencies. And the hub behind all of that really provides institutions as well as students, high school counselors, advisors at institutions, to help students work through that evaluation of how will my course transfer. In some cases, it'll also include additional information as to whether it's elective credit, general credit. Sorry about the dog. Some of us have kids, some of us have dogs, so I apologize for that. So the MTN itself is an interesting undertaking in that you can put in course equivalencies in a one-time ad, or you can do what we call batch uploads. Sometimes that takes resources and support through your IT department at your institution if you choose to do those batch uploads. So again, when the workshop, the upcoming workshops focus on this, you may want to invite other people from your institution so we can help explain some of the inner workings of that process. So in terms of next steps, here's some of the upcoming workshops that we've talked about. And these are all posted again on MCCA's website, where you can go in and register, and we'll have that resource to you as well. That's basically how you were able to register for workshop number 1. But workshop number 2 will be held in August as a Zoom meeting. And this will really focus on joining the Michigan Transfer Pathways. It'll be an overview really focusing on the liberal arts pathways because that's part of the project. But certainly if you want to cover other areas, other pathways within that context, we can do that. Workshop number 3 will be held October 10th, again, a Zoom meeting. And this is where we're going to go into the details related to the Michigan Transfer Agreement and the Michigan Transfer Network itself. The last workshop will be held in 2023 in February. And that's really kind of talking about next steps and bringing everything all together. So if you have any lingering questions about the pathways, about the MTA, as well as the MTN, we can cover that at that time. Erica mentioned the symposium in 2023, and we are looking forward to seeing everyone face to face where we can get together and maybe actually like do a fist bump or something. So it's important that you engage from this point forward, sign up for the workshops. Again, encourage any colleagues at your institutions who would benefit or whom you may need as kind of that collaborator within your own institution to help you work through these processes. Some of those people might include registrars, some people from your IT department, some people, if you have a specific transfer area that can be participating as well, that's perfect. So one of the things that we like to do as part of these workshops is to pause and allow you to provide some feedback, ask questions, and we capture the notes related to our discussion so that anyone who isn't available to participate in the workshop itself can go back and look at these slides and see kind of what may have come up and what some of those discussion items may have been. So as we talked about at the beginning, you can raise your hand and then we'll call on people. You'll kind of go to the top as far as who we see in the profile pictures, and then we'll call on you. I can also pause and ask Erica or my other colleagues at MICU if you have any comments or questions yourself or encouraging words for the participants from your sectors.
I do. So when we were working with the MCCA to put this grant together, and when I say we were working with, I mean that Erica and her team put this grant together and asked us to join them because they did the heavy lifting on everything and building the relationship with the grant makers. And that was fantastic because we appreciate their partnership so much and all of the work that they put into transfer. And when we were going through the process of the application, one thing that TGOL wanted is a letter of support from every single president, not just from our executive committee, not just from the overall association. And initially we said, wait, you've got to be kidding me. Every single institution. And they said yes. And initially I thought that was kind of silly because usually we get the board of directors to move on something and that counts for the group. But what they really wanted was for it to be a clear priority for every institution. And I'm glad that they wanted that, because it meant we had a conversation with every single college president in our membership, and they all understand what the grant is for. They all signed individual letters, and the letters, while were form in nature, each one was customized to that particular institution and how they currently participate in transfer, what their goals are for transfer moving forward. And it was clear, especially from our presidents at institutions that may be just starting out, where most transfer really is ad hoc rather than a coordinated approach. But it was clear that they felt like it was part of the next wave of where enrollment growth is going to come from. And we have a declining enrollment state in Michigan. Fewer and fewer high school students are in the state. Fewer and fewer of those are graduating, and even fewer are choosing to attend college. We went from 65% of graduates choosing to attend college, which is pretty sad to start with, but now it's 53% of high school graduates in the state. So it's fewer and fewer in percentage and in number. So the growth in enrollment and the growth in the Michigan economy is really going to come from either transfer students that are starting maybe at an associate's program or starting out even in a certificated program and deciding to go for a bachelor's degree, or from adults coming back that really could be part of transfer also, because maybe they have community college credits from a time before, or the community college is the gateway for them into their higher education career. So I think, thank you for spending the time to participate in these efforts. We know that your presidents value this. We had the conversations with them, so they have made it a priority. And we know that it's going to be meaningful, and it's just one of the many pieces of the puzzle to what the higher education mosaic is going to look like moving forward.
Thank you, Colby. Any other comments, questions from anyone in the group at this point?
Hello. Yes. I have a comment.
Go ahead, Lan.
Yeah. Hi. Yeah. This is Lan. I am Lan. I am from Siena Heights University. I am as the transfer liaison for Siena Heights for years, and I have worked with the donors on the joining the process in the Michigan transfer pathway. For Siena Heights. So we are our president and vice president of academic affairs really support the initiative, and we see the benefits that the Michigan transfer pathway initiative could bring to students and institutions. So the one thing my concern is that how we can increase the transfer, the stimulate transfer from the community college to independent college using the transfer pathway. Yeah, we have Siena High has participated in Michigan transfer pathway for a while, both in Michigan. Michigan transfer agreement and Michigan transfer pathway, but when I talk with the registrar's office and admission office, I look like we haven't received many students who transfer to Siena Heights using those pathway. MTA and Michigan transfer pathway. And most students and majority of students transfer to Siena Heights using cost to cost, single cost to cost equivalencies. So, and I don't know if do you have any kind of evaluations for the effectiveness of the agreements, transfer articulation agreements, in helping transfer student from community college into the independent college.
Lan, I have a question for you. You mentioned that you talked to your registrar's office and they commented that most students are not using the Michigan transfer.
Yes, I talked to them if
You
the
actually code or track students specifically when they're admitted? Do you ask that question?
yes, so I asked both
pathway,
of
and
them
you code
and
them
they
on your
said that
students?
they haven't seen student, haven't seen very few, or they didn't give me the specific numbers. So, but they look like they do not have impression that they receive student transfer to Siena High using MTA or Michigan transfer network,
Okay,
Michigan transfer agreements.
so students are or are not providing the MTA.
I don't know. Yeah, I didn't ask the details yet.
Okay.
But yeah, so and I before working at the Siena Heights, I work at the Washington Community College, and I have a chance to work on the student transfer data for Washington Community College. So I found that from my analysis, I found that in Washington Community College, a majority of students who transfer to four-year university using cost-to-cost equivalencies, and about 15% of them using MTA, or about less than 10% using associate transfer pathway.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I can say that, as Erica mentioned, one of the activities related to this project is to develop resources and communication guidelines to help promote some of these better. So I think through that work, we're hoping that we can realize more students and an increase in enrollment for those institutions, for students that are using the MTA, using the Michigan transfer pathways, which is critical. Part of that responsibility falls on the institutions themselves too, in terms of the information that they post on their websites related to these opportunities. So we're going to be going over that a little bit when we go through some of the future workshops. So hopefully that work will help see some increases that I think you're hoping to realize, Lan.
Yes, I agree, and I think that's we can work together and you can find the barriers that can prevent student transfer using from the community college to independent college using the package agreements.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's would be useful. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Lan.
Thank you. Yeah.
Any other thoughts? Any other feedback? Questions? Okay, we have some things in the chat. I'm just trying to go through here and make sure I cover everything. Referencing that making steady progress. Are there any statistics on the percentages of students pursuing and completing the MTA? Erica, do you want to address that in terms of data?
Sure, that's a great question. So the MTA was launched in the fall of 2014, which is now going on about 8 years ago. And since that time, Michigan has not done any research on who is using the MTA, how many students, where they're coming from, and where they're going. So last year, we started working with Macro to launch a survey that will be administered to both community colleges and universities to understand more about the number of students who are using the MTA. If, for example, students are getting the MTA and also getting an associate degree, or if they are not, and some other factors associated with the MTA, in addition to asking some of our bachelor's degree granting institutions about any changes they've made to their general education requirements since we launched the MTA in 2014. That survey should be launched in the next couple of months. We're just finalizing the questions on that. And then hopefully by late summer, we'll have some additional information about how many students have received the MTA stamp at a community college and the number of students who've transferred that to the university. So I hope that will provide us with some additional information on how effective our Michigan's version of the block transfer agreement, general ed agreement is.
Thank you.
So I guess, Donna, to say for some folks that perhaps want to get started on some of those things right now, if your institution, you may want to investigate, if you're involved in this, how your institution tracks students who have been, if you're a sending institution, students who've gotten the MTA stamp, and then tracking students who transferred in with the MTA. If you want to start doing some investigation around that information and how you capture that information, that may help you as we launch the survey a little bit later this spring.
Any other questions? Any other thoughts? If not, I can move on. So even before we hold these next workshops, if you are excited about this and you want to get started, I'm here for one-on-one support. We're not expecting you to capture all of this information, understand it, and be able to move forward simply by attending the workshops and looking at the PowerPoint presentations. So if you are interested in one-on-one support, just simply send me an email. We can talk over the phone. We can set up a private Zoom meeting. I can walk you through the mitransfer.org website. Whatever your needs are, I am here as a resource. So feel free to reach out. And then, as I mentioned, we're providing here some of those links and resources that we've talked about. This first one is a link to the MCCA.org, the MCCA website. This is, again, where you can look under events and register for the future workshops. MIcolleges.org, I'm sure you're familiar with already. We have information under initiatives and resources in terms of what the MCCA is doing. We also have links to our funders, the Arthur Vining Davis Foundation, as well as the Teagle Foundation. Erica, do you want to mention SOVA a little bit? We didn't really talk about them, but since we've listed them here as a resource, it might be helpful.
Yeah, SOVA is partnering with us to develop some of those demystifying and communication resources. Their website is fantastic. They have done some exceptional work across the entire country related to transfer. And if you're following the tracking or tackling transfer blog that's in Inside Higher Ed, they're managing all of that process as well. So we're very lucky. They're a Michigan-based company, and we're very lucky that they're partnering with us on this work.
Thank you. Here's the link to the mitransfer.org website that I've mentioned several times. Then there are some additional direct links to the Michigan Transfer Agreement, as well as the MI Transfer Pathways, which is kind of listed under Transfer Your Associate's Degree currently. And then lastly, all of us here on the call are here as a resource for you, including myself, Erica, Colby, and Shannon. We have about